Hello, welcome y'all. All I want to say is I really do hope you guys enjoy this no sleep story. I will link the person's profile down below, so y'all could read it. It's a good read, right? It's short, it's sweet. I promise y'all will enjoy it. I enjoyed it when I was reading it. Oh, that was my first time. Quick PSA, be safe out there while trick or treating. I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm gonna go read the story. This story is called This story is called Trapped in the Paris Catacombs. I will link, everything below, like I said. Although you guys will notice a dip in quality, I apologize for that. There is a good reason. I recorded that on my phone. I'm sorry. I'll try to get a better mic, hopefully by the end of this year. This all started because my childhood friend Abigail wanted to go to Paris. We had just graduated and knew that we wouldn't be young forever. She didn't want to travel alone. I don't blame her. I joined her mostly because I wanted to try out rich foods and I wouldn't otherwise be able to. I didn't know much French, only the important words like asking to go to the bathroom. Abby could communicate better, so I relied on her for this trip. She used all her advantages and bullied me into doing a catacomb tour. It's not like if I could do anything else. Besides, hanging out in an overpriced hotel alone, I figured that the tour would be packed being the spooky season and all. Abby hated crowds and I expected her to bail. Turns out it wasn't as busy as I thought. About 20 people were in our small group when we arrived. There were a few different tours available. I suppose that to split the numbers a little, or we just arrived too early. It was 10 in the morning after all. Our tour guide stopped at the entrance to tell us the long list of rules. His accent was thick and I didn't understand most of it. From what I gathered, she said not to touch anything, stay within the group, and for the love of God, don't try to bring anything home. Gross, I knew people took rocks and national parks, but who would want a dusty old bone? Abby and I were at the end of the group. The tunnels were dark and dusty, no damp like I assumed. The tour guide spoke explaining the history and gesturing towards the signs for us to stop and read if we would like. I thought seeing piles and piles of human remains might break me out a little. I was just bored because I didn't understand our guide. I was missing out on all the neat facts. And once you saw a pile of bones, the next one wasn't too interesting. The wall of schools looked a little neat though. Abby had moved near the front of the group to read the sign. I didn't know phones were allowed, but I glanced down at mine, shocked to see a signal. For the next few minutes, I kept my head down trying to connect to local coffee shops' Wi-Fi that was above us. While walking behind the group, our guided voice echoed down the stone hallway. The orange light and countless candles weren't enough to keep me from tripping over the uneven floor a few times. I didn't know how long I walked until I realized I no longer could hear voices or footsteps. When I looked up, I found myself in an empty tunnel lined with candles, no bones, no tour guide, no Abby, no one. That couldn't be. Didn't they say if I get lost I should stay put? I waited for a while, listening, trying to hear any signs of life. I called out. My echoing voice gave me chills. Finally, I heard someone call back in French, praying I would be out of here soon. Abby would give me an earful when I saw her next. I turned the corner expecting to see a group again. I heard the sounds of a large crowd talking and moving about. When I looked around the corner, I didn't see a soul. In a new hallway, I shone my phone flashlight down the narrow passage the light couldn't reach the end. I found myself rubbing my arms, feeling suddenly cold and scared as hell. I'm normally not one to get scared at haunted places, but this was getting to me. Had my ears played tricks on me? No, I knew I heard a voice. I didn't want to go further into the tunnel, so I turned to come back the way I came. I should have done that to start with. As soon as I found myself doubting my memory, the candles that had lined up in the hallway had been white, not black. At least 1,000 were on the floor, half-melted piles of wax forming on top of each other. At the end of the hallway was something I knew I hadn't seen before, a wooden door. I stopped in front of it, freaked out. I knocked first as if expecting an answer. I heard people illegally set up raves and even movie theaters down here, but this door looked to be ancient, as if it had been down here since the tunnels were made. Carefully, I placed my hand on the worn brass handle to push it open. The door cracked. A burst of cold wind came howling down the hallway and snuffed out the candles. Cold sweat started at the back of my neck. When I opened the door, I saw darkness, simply nothing. The floor ended when the door opened. A dark, almost endless pit was beyond my toes. This couldn't be right. I have never heard a pit like this. I stared down into darkness, almost expecting this to all be a hoax. As I started, the inky blackness started a slight light, and a red light appeared at the bottom with a sudden blast of hot air. I swore I heard something like drums rhythmically beating down below. Nope. I slammed the door, refusing to deal with whatever all that was. I needed to get the hell out of here. I turned to walk back down the hallway. Instead of being greeted by the other tunnel lined with bones, I saw an empty tunnel covered with graffiti. My heart leaped out of my throat. That was a line of electric lights above. If I followed that, I would make my way out the exit, right? I started to jog, my feet slipping from the dusty floor, my lungs burned from the effort and fear. I didn't know what any of these spray painted words meant, but I was glad to see them. My jog started into a run when I noticed another steel door at the end of the tunnel. I crashed into it, spilling through, expecting to be greeted by a fresh air. Instead, I started falling into a pitch black pit. I woke up, my entire body was throbbing in pain, with so many hard rocks digging into my back. When I moved into the dark to pull out my phone for the light, my arm moved aside. I was lying on, and an odd crunching sound echoed through my room. My throat grew dry, and I almost didn't turn on my phone from the dread of what I would see. The light came on, but didn't cover the entire room. I was sitting on many skeletons and all dry, cracked from age. Unable to help myself, I screamed, scrambling. I struggled to move over the pile, my skin crawling every time, my exposed skin touching the dry remains. The room appeared endless. I slipped and rolled down the slope of the bones, scraping my arm along the way. My fresh wounds stung, however, I just wanted to get the hell out of here. I found a stone wall with a small opening just large enough to fit through. I entered into another tunnel. This was a bit smaller than the others. I sat, dry heaving, while shaking the dust off my clothes. Footsteps came from the darkness. I only had my phone light. I should be overjoyed to hear another person, and yet my body went into flight mode. I moved as fast as I could away from the sound, and my heart pounding as the person behind me got closer and closer. A small hole was in the wall. I knew I couldn't run forever, so I risked it. I crammed myself inside, no longer caring about my bruises or cuts, shoving my phone in my pocket. I clamped my hands over my mouth and tried to be quiet, breathing. My knees pressed hard against my chest. I huddled in the space, far too small for my body. The footsteps grew louder. I thought my heart would stop as I tried to think of what may come. The footsteps grew louder. I thought my heart would stop. I tried to think of what may come out of the darkness for me. Not knowing what was out there was far more terrifying than seeing any kind of monster mankind could think of. I was almost tempted to peek my head out to get an answer to avoid the fear of not having one. The steps passed, but were soon joined by more. I needed to place my hands over my ears and shut my eyes tight against the booming sound of crowds stomping just outside my hiding spot. Voices came unlike anything a human could make. Cruel laughter and something almost like music mixed into the defying chorus. I might have been there for a few minutes, but felt like an eternity of being crammed inside that crack in the wall. Scared and alone. Even when Thai sounds died down, I didn't dare to leave my hiding spot. Hot, silent tears ran down my face. I just wanted to go home, but deep down, I knew no matter how much I explored these tunnels, I would never find a way out. A hand fell on my shoulder, causing me to scream. I flinched away, unable to move in the small space. The hand withdrew, and I saw a pale face peeking at me in the dark. They looked human enough, so thin they might as well be a skull with long black hair. The dark eyes sunk into their face, as yet a smile was almost kind. Despite my fear, I found myself reaching out to this person. I took their bony frail hand and let them guide us down the pitch black tunnels. They may be leading me to a horrible fate, and their hand was warm like the living, and I was glad for that. We arrived to a small room lit by blood-red candles. Square holes had been carved out of the wall, deep enough for people to lay down inside. And there were people. Bodies filled each hole aside from two. They weren't all skeletons. Some wore modern shoes, while others had their bare feet sticking out, half rotten. The odd stranger smiled again and walked over the wall, gesturing at a space. I shook my head, feeling sick. I didn't want to be in that cold, dark space alone for the rest of my life. No, maybe longer than that. Somehow they understood my thoughts. They wrapped their arms around me and rested a head on my shoulder. I wanted to hold this small body back, to feel some sort of warmth. They would share a spot with me whenever I was ready. I wouldn't be alone. I gently pushed them aside. I took all my willpower to do so. Their smile didn't fade. They just nodded and let me turn back. Gently, I pushed them aside. I took all my willpower to do so. Their smile didn't fade. They just nodded and let me turn back around into the endless hallways. It hurt leaving that room behind. I do dearly just want to stop and rest, but I can't. How long has it been? No matter how far I walk, I always seem to end up at the same long dark hallway with the entrance and resting room at the end. I hear the sound of others I don't care to meet in the distance. My life is now walking around the hallway. New doors appear, all leading back to the start. My options are now keep walking or let others catch up, or stop in the room with the warm embrace waiting. I didn't take a break to type this out. My phone has service 1 bar, and yet I can't call for help. I don't know if this will reach anyone. I pray it does. If you ever go on tour at the catacombs, remember to listen carefully. Don't leave the group. If you get lost, stay where you are and respect the dead, because no matter how much we struggle against it, in the end, we all end up dead and buried. Now, I gotta admit this, right? This works great as a cautionary tale, of like, pay attention, but it also works great as a horror story. I love what the writer did, and I love like how the logistics of it. We've seen people get lost in the catacombs. There's been videos out there, and I think there was a video out there of some guy running, and it makes you question what is he running from. I love the message, right? Like near the end, she realizes, well, either way, I'm not gonna make it out. I'm dead. So she writes this, and honestly, in my opinion, that was pretty great. With that being said, I'm gonna end the video. Make sure for all of you to check your candy while you're out there trick or treating. I guess it's gonna be my Halloween special. Unfortunately, I wanted to end it off with the ARG, but I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I've been having a lot of classwork, but that's besides the point. I really do hope you guys enjoy your Halloween. Thank you for watching, and bye.